I'm so excited to start off this season with two of my favorite linguists, Sara Dalanaj and Darrin Miller. And I really mean that. This is not flattery. They're both so wonderful and such fun people to know. And this is the opening season of Industry Insights, spring 2024. So this is our first event. And we want to welcome all of you here, because if we didn't have guests to come and listen to us chat, we wouldn't have a program. So thank you so much for coming tonight. I'd like to start off I'll introduce myself first. I'm Lisa Hollinger, in case you don't know who I am. I'm the Assistant Director of Marketing and Outreach for the College of Information. And I'm always here, happy to hear your feedback. So feel free to email me if you have any feedback about any events that we do. And I'd like to introduce our two guests. We'll start with our speaker, the person who will be interviewed, our alumni, well, alumnus. That word is really a problem for me. Darrin Miller. Darrin Miller is a machine learning data linguist at Amazon. The topic today is forging a career as a machine learning data linguist. And the reason we want to know about his career is because Industry Insights is one of our events that's supposed to help students see the connection from campus to career. And that's what we're here to do tonight. He has worked remotely for the past, few years? Darrin, how many years have you been working remotely?
I started full-time as a contractor in 2018, actually. So, oh my gosh, that's a long time.
It does seem like a long time when you say it that way.
Yeah.
So Darrin's a linguist working remotely and loving it, with experience annotating linguistic data of varying capacities, primarily phonemic and textual. He graduated from UNT's Bachelor's of Linguistics program in 2015 and then went on for the master's he finished in 2018. Darrin works at Amazon now as a machine learning data linguist, where he's part of the Alexa Data Services Department. Is that still true, Darrin? I'm reading your bio, but I put it up last fall.
Yep, that's accurate.
Okay. And he works with engineers to transcribe spoken data using the phonetic alphabet and his knowledge of phonology. Due to his work, Alexa will be better equipped to understand when spoken to by people with non-standard dialects. I think my dialect is pretty standard, although I've heard I do say some weird things being from the Midwest. But certainly there are all kinds of dialects around the United States, and we need Alexa to be able to understand them. So Darrin's helping with that. To accomplish this, he improves PTS and ASR models for Alexa and other voice-based Amazon products through phonemic transcription by contributing to machine learning training data, and also repairs broken transcriptions for direct fixes of tokens that are spoken by Alexa, among other priorities. In his free time, he also plays violin, performing with the Fort Worth Civic Orchestra. Are you still doing that?
Yep.
Awesome. And he knits fabulous creations. So if you're interested in getting something knitted, I know right now it's not too cold outside, but you might need something. There's a website on Facebook that you can check him out. Maybe we can drop that in the chat later. So everybody, let's welcome Darrin to Industry Insights. Thank you for coming, Darrin.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. And our interviewer, every good interview has a good interviewer, and that is Sara Dalanaj. And she is also a linguist. Sara has been an invested writer and researcher in all 3 decades of her life, and a linguist who just graduated from the University of North Texas, fall 2023, right?
Yep.
Congratulations. Yes. That's a big deal.
You.
Yeah. Her research interests are focused on morphosyntax and the information theory approach to language data analyses. She speaks Tosk. Is it Tosk?
Tosk Albanian, yeah.
Okay, Tosk Albanian. Yeah, I knew how to say Albanian, but Tosk I wasn't sure. Tosk Albanian as her native language, and a few others, which compelled her to study linguistics, which is the scientific study of languages. So let's all welcome Sara to Industry Insights. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me and for the introduction, Lisa.
Happy to have you. So I'm going to recommend to our guests that you go ahead and put your view in speaker view. And, sit back, relax. Imagine that Sara and Darrin are sitting on a sofa having a conversation back and forth. While you're listening, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat, and we will get to them in the last 15 minutes of the program. So I'm going to turn off my camera and turn off my mic, and you all can get started. Take it away, Sada.
All right, so we've prepared a few questions to help Darrin shine his light and help us learn a little more about his interests and his job. So the first question that we'll ask him is, as a UNT graduate with a bachelor's and a master's degree in linguistics, can you tell us about what sparked your interest in linguistics and then what made you hold on to your interests to linguistics?
Yeah, so in junior high and high school, I took Spanish classes and I really enjoyed them and I did well in them. Um, and then in undergrad, I also took German classes as an elective. But at the time, I didn't know what exactly you could do with knowledge of how other language functions. But I also saw them as, an elective as they were. I didn't see any like professional possibilities. Um, but I still enjoyed language. I just thought it was, a fun life skill that you could have. But I was also taking technical writing classes in undergrad, and back then, linguistics was part of linguistics and technical communication. I think that was what our department was at the time before we joined the College of Information. So somehow a connection was made there because I was taking all these classes. I kept seeing linguistics, and I was like, what is linguistics? And then I realized, oh, I kind of already am doing that, by learning about how German works and everything. So that's sort of what sparked my interest in linguistics. And I wasn't very happy as I think at the time I was a computer science major. Before that, I was a math major. It wasn't really working out with my life at that time. Things had changed, I guess, in my personality or something. But I decided to take Ling 3060, the intro, and I believe, my first ever class I had with a visiting professor, Christina Shu Casey, who, if you've met her, she's very um, she's uh, she's a very bright personality and very exciting and excited about language. And so she just really sparked that fire in my interest in linguistics. And she was just so excited about, well, when you took the intro, you start from the very, very beginning, learning about all the little patterns and the sounds and the morphemes and everything. She just was such a good teacher and got me really excited about it. And from that point on, I was like, okay, I really enjoy this. I'm good at it. Apparently, there's a thing you can do with linguistics and language. So uh, I just stuck with it at that point.
Wow, yeah, I think I've never met her and I have never taken a course with her, but I think I've heard of another student who felt inspired by her to go and study linguistics. So I believe you when you say that she was an exciting and excited person. I mean, it always
Yeah.
takes one to kind of rub off that interest. And yes, we have a fascinating field of study. So I'm happy that it was this type of story for you with a good beginning.
Yeah, that was definitely just the beginning because I met all sorts of other instructors and professors who each have their own passions with in relation to language. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think we have a really good department here. So yeah.
indeed. So next, we want to know about which main pillar of linguistics, such as phonology, morphology, syntax, or semantics, which one did you find most interesting during your studies? And then which one did you find most useful in your work later?
Yeah, so I think because I got so excited early on when we were looking at the basics, I really enjoyed phonetics and phonology at the beginning, as well as morphology. I really liked doing those worksheets that you did in class where you're looking at all the patterns of the morphemes and how they combine in other languages and different types of morphology of foreign languages. So yeah, I really enjoyed those classes. And also like in phonetics and phonology, just like sitting in the middle of class next to your peers making really weird sounds and like playing around with the interactive IPA chart, and like that was just like weird and fun. And I was like, I can't believe like I'm gonna be graded for this. It was I just loved it. And of course I in grad school I took those classes as well, but I guess I gravitated more towards like sociolinguistics a little bit, because the research I did was related to like modern slang words in pop culture. So I was writing about that sort of stuff, but then kind of came full circle because what I do at Amazon is I'm literally most days just doing phonemic transcription of words to train the and maintain the voice model of Alexa. So um, it kind of got away from me, I guess, in grad school, but then I came back to it in my professional life. So
Nice. Um, was there any additional training or experience that you got outside of your academic work during your studies, which might have helped you as a stepping stone to help you secure the job you have now? Such as your experience in annotation at Appen, Defined Crowd, or Lionbridge. Basically, was there any other experience besides studying that ended up being helpful in your job hunt?
yeah, so my job title right now is machine learning data linguist, which is a really fancy way to say that I'm a data annotator focusing on linguistic data. And so I started at Amazon in, well, the end of this month will be 2 years. So February 28th, 2022. Before that, I was working full time as a contractor, working for all of these other companies that you mentioned at the same time, hopping from project to project. It was kind of feast or famine sometimes, but I learned a lot from that period from 2018 to the end of 2021. Um,
And this was after you graduated from your master's as well, right?
yeah, shortly. So back then, I'm not sure if it still is a good resource for jobs, but linguistlist.org was posting a lot of pretty decent jobs for linguists. And after I graduated, I found a posting from Lionbridge on Linguist List that was looking for contractors. So I interviewed with them, and then they sent me an email with like an Excel spreadsheet and like a set of guidelines. And they were like, you have this amount of time to do this, just send it back. And that was like my job for a few months, which is pretty weird to think about, but that's how it started. So all that to say, um, I learned a few maybe life skills
Mhm.
uh, from doing that. Flexibility and adaptability, because I was going from project to project and having to read new and changing guidelines all the time for different projects, and working remotely with lots of different people that were perfect strangers to me. Um, so I had to learn to fly by the seat of my pants, um, collaborate with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, and make sure that we were providing quality data. And all of these jobs, all of these projects, it all boils down to data annotation, which that can mean a lot of different things. But some of the first projects that I did were sort of like, take this sentence rewrite it in a more concise way. And, there were like 1,000 sentences that you'd go through in your file, or read this sentence and read this automatic rewrite that the machine rewrote and indicate whether it's more concise or more polite or more grammatically correct or that sort of thing. So what we were doing was very quickly just adding, I guess, metadata to the information presented to us that taught the whatever language model that we were working with for whatever company client, so that it could improve whatever, it was very like shrouded what the intentions were. But it was all very interesting, and like I said, very fast paced, and nothing was very permanent. And that's sort of why I was looking for my job at Amazon, doing a search for like a full-time position. But yeah, I learned a lot of different things about being, I guess, professional, working with lots of different people, and being able to, I guess, understand conventions and guidelines for new tasks quickly. All of these things have helped me in my current job for sure. Especially, like the repetitive nature of annotation tasks. Being able to do that and not go crazy is important.
Yeah, I
So
was actually wondering about that in case it gets too repetitive. But then it's maybe also a good thing that we have so many conventions for transcribing speech, so that maybe that keeps it a little more interesting, I guess, when it gets repetitive and boring otherwise with just annotating text.
yeah, and at the end of the day, you're still working with linguistic data. So as a linguist, when you find weird things in the data, you can go to whatever the group chat is for your team that's working on the project together and say, hey, look at this weird example. So it wasn't always just keeping your head down and clicky clacking on the keyboard. There was always something interesting coming up.
That takes me to my next question about a linguistic problem that you had to solve, and how did you solve it?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting question. And I thought of this somewhat recent situation. My current team at Amazon, my manager told us about the situation, about an unrelated project that we weren't working on, and I know a little bit about, but I can't divulge the details. But basically, it was kind of a creative writing project, and the how most annotation projects work is you have a first pass, or the person who initially annotates the data, then you have somebody who's been deemed higher performer, and so they review that work.
Mhm.
So my manager was telling us that there was a lot of people being rated low for grammatical errors. So he showed us the data, and we were able to determine, if you grew up in the United States, the way grammar is taught in public school is not consistent, I guess. So there's
I was not, because I went to school in my home country, but let me tell you,
Mhm.
even for us, it's inconsistent. And it's probably the case for most countries, because how do you
Oh,
grapple with grammar, right? Or with prescriptive grammar, especially.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, for
who
sure.
settles the debate on that? So,
Yeah,
just
and English
sorry to
is still
interject, but
weird,
yeah.
like compared to, say, Spanish, where there's like an authoritative body on the grammatical
Yeah, yeah.
structure of Spanish and everything. But yeah, so a lot of people have very strong opinions about uh, grammar in English, and but what as a linguist, what I've come to understand, and in my previous work, is that there's a difference between like grammatical correctness and a style preference.
Mm-hmm.
Like ending a sentence with a preposition is actually okay. And it's something that
No.
people do naturally. So yeah, it's a thing, it's real. So what we found when we looked at this, because it was an issue, they were like, well, this data is obviously very low quality, so we can't use it. And then we looked at it, we said, well, actually, a lot of these corrections were unnecessary because the data was supposed to be natural, as if it came from a human, because we wanted the machine to learn that sort of thing. Um, so um, so we were able to say, look through all the data, and each of us found patterns. Okay, well, this type of issue is actually just a disagreement in style instead of an actual grammatical problem. And so we, as a team, provided that information, and then from there they were able to improve the review process for that project. Um, which,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fun because it was totally unrelated to our normal work. So we got to take some time away from the monotony of every day, and we do that all the time. Finding reaching out to other teams and collaborating, and we're trying to find new things to do for our customers. So
It takes a village.
oh, for
And
sure.
on this note, I'm curious, how do you coordinate efforts, say when there's a problem to be tackled, or even just a group project? How do you coordinate your efforts with team members who don't have a background in linguistics?
Yeah, so I work for linguistic services, and we do linguistic work for our customers. But a lot of the requests from our customers, and the customers, by the way, are internal. They're just other organizations within Amazon who are working on their own different versions of the voice model, Alexa or any of the other voices. Um, so when the request comes in, unless they're specifically asking for a linguist to perform the task, we have non-linguists who do the work, most of whom have been at Amazon way longer than me, and they've been doing this work for a very long time. So lucky for us, they already have a good understanding of what's required. And so as far as non-linguists, uh, working with non-linguists in my job, we have guidelines that they follow that were written by linguists, and they undergo a process every once in a while. We take a look at the guidelines, and we make sure that they make sense. They're very concise yet very descriptive to ensure that um, anybody who comes in who maybe is new to it can read it and understand exactly what they need to do for the given task. So we want to make sure that the guidelines are understood. We like to use lots of examples. We don't want to use really weird, jargony linguistic terminology that only somebody with a degree in linguistics might understand. But you know, they're professional annotators and they're very smart people. So uh, they do a great job. If they have questions, we on the linguist team are the subject matter experts. So we field their questions. We, take the questions. We look at the guidelines. If there's some sort of um, ambiguity or something like that, then we can go to our customer and ask them directly, what do you think about this example? Is this a problem with your data? Or how do you want us to handle it in this data set? Yeah, but it's not a problem working with non-linguists at all, because the people that I work with are very smart and capable. So it's great.
Mhm. Nice. That's really good to know. Because some us linguists sometimes can be difficult to work with because we have such a small discipline compared to other giants next door, such as computer science or data science.
Mhm.
And they have a lot more students enrolled, and it seems they get a lot more traction than we do. But it's good to know that there is still the ability to have that cross-disciplinary bridge gapped or filled would be the word, right, in English. Because those cross-disciplinary efforts, I find even in my job hunting, it's a really good thing to have. But while we're still talking about teamwork, Darrin, I wonder, how do you address ambiguity in general when it arises in your language data of whatever form?
Yeah, that's a really good question because language is full of ambiguity, as we know. So working as a as essentially a data annotator in linguistics, one thing you want to understand when you're training a machine language model, is that the right way to say that? Anyway, is that the machine needs consistency, a certain level of consistency with the data, so that if there is a pattern to be found, it can figure out that pattern in order to improve itself as we keep feeding it the data. So over time, we want to be consistent. So when there's something ambiguous that comes up, that either what's already written in the guidelines might not explain, or the guidelines themselves, we might interpret them differently as individuals, because although everybody on my team has a degree in linguistics, we got our degrees from other places, and also our idiolects can sometimes dictate our interpretations of certain things, how certain things are written. If one person wrote it a certain way, you might interpret a completely different way if you're from the other side of the country, for example, grew up speaking language differently, or if you didn't even grow up in the United States, or an English speaking country, you might come across something like an idiom in the guidelines, and you're like, what the heck does this even mean? So lots of opportunities for ambiguity to arise in the data, and even in the guidelines that are supposed to help us work with the data. So like I said, what's most important usually is to be consistent with whatever we decide. So quite often what we do, we have weekly sessions, my team of linguists, when we have an issue that comes up, we have an opportunity to discuss it and debate it. At the end of the day, we almost never 100% agree on something, but one of the leadership principles of Amazon, we have a lot of them, is to have backbone and disagree and commit. So what that means is we want to be able to speak up, speak our minds, and have our opinions heard, which has been a learning experience for me, but also freeing in a way. So we're able to disagree strongly with each other, but the commit part of disagree and commit is that once we as a team come to a decision, then we agree that's how it's going to go. We don't rebel or anything like that. So when something like ambiguity comes up, we make changes to our guidelines, and from that point on, we change our behavior with regard to the data to ensure that it's consistent for the training data.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Um, So, as a machine learning data linguist, Darren, can you tell us about how you stay updated with the latest developments in linguistics?
Um, so my first note on this question was just IDK because I'm kind of lazy about that. I really learn new things about the industry through osmosis. Um, as somebody who works for a huge corporation like Amazon, I'm kind of like a hybrid linguist slash corporate employee. So I um yeah, I absorb what I can of the information that's around me. I work all day and then I want to do fun stuff when I get off work. So I don't, in my free time, I admit I do not, troll the internet for uh looking for the latest edition of uh
No
some linguistic.
scholar.google.no?
No, I don't know.
Oh,
I think uh I that was probably my least favorite part about being in school was looking for and reading journal uh, articles. I hate to say it because um, I'm in an academic circle as we speak, but I think that's when I
that's okay. We
realized.
don't publish there. We just read from there. So,
But yeah, I think that's when I realized I didn't really want to be in academia. Is when I I didn't necessarily enjoy writing. But yeah, back to the question. Um, I when I was in school, I attended conferences. I will say that I made friends with people who, when we had shared interests, more concentrated interests in school. I met people at these conferences who did stuff that was interesting. I wrote their names down. I followed them on Twitter. Um, I would definitely recommend that sort of thing if there's a local event you can attend or something in a very specific subfield, even if it's a couple states away, if you can go to a conference you're really interested in. Um, I know when I was in school, especially if you're attending as a speaker, if you have a poster presentation or something like that, the College of Information or the Department of Linguistics can help you get funding to travel. It's very nice. I appreciate everything that uh, the Department of Linguistics did whenever I attended two conferences. With on their dime almost. It was really nice to be able to do that. So definitely take advantage of things like that, because you will meet so many people from all walks of life who have this shared interest in the same thing that you're interested in. And once you have those relationships, then these people are going to be on your social media feeds and in your Google search history, and you'll just automatically know, oh, well, let me see what so and so is up to, and that information will be there. So that would be my recommendation, is to meet the people, and then you'll have a stronger connection to the type of work that they're doing.
yeah. Um, Darren, a little earlier, we were talking about cross-disciplinary studies from linguistics onto other fields. Would you recommend to our students that they focus on either programming or statistics or math or psychology as another branch, sort of, to connect between linguistics and either one of those in order to be a better linguist?
Mhm. My answer to that is yes. And thank you, Haj Ross, for always saying that in class. I say do it all or do none of it. Do what makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to have a job that you hate. Like even if you make a lot of money, you want to, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be more stressed. You might not be doing a very good job. Um, it's just not healthy. So I would say, the more lucrative jobs are going to be more geared towards programming, stats, data science. Um, but there's lots of opportunities, excuse me, in psycholinguistics, like you mentioned, psychology. There's always a lot of crossover, and I think linguistics, your ability as a linguist is sort of a superpower that you can apply to lots of other disciplines. Um, yeah, I would say go with your heart first, but once you've found something, you should be able to keep your eyes open and keep your ears open and find opportunities. Um, yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit at least.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's good to always have the option in mind that we can connect our field of studies with other fields of study and just combine to create something greater. And as you said,
Mhm.
yeah, linguistics is like a superpower that you can apply to whatever other degree or most degrees.
Yeah, I think the combo of data science and linguistics
Mhm.
is something that is coming up a lot
Yes.
um, lately, and I think especially with like all of these large language models and ChatGPT and all of this stuff, I think that's a good combo. Like if you were really just like, what's going to be have the most job opportunities, maybe double major in those,
Yeah, yeah.
or take some linguistic classes as a data science major, or vice versa.
So since we're talking about large language models, in light of the developments of natural language processing, in your view, what are the strongest opportunities for linguists today?
Well, right now, I feel like linguistics is hot. It's a hot commodity,
Mhm.
but you're not always going to find like linguist in the job title. But especially if you uh, learn programming or learn like that side of large language models and NLP, there's there are so many startup companies right now, and even larger companies are joining this trend of working on a large language model of their own in order to compete with ChatGPT. And I think OpenAI, who does ChatGPT, I think they've partnered with Microsoft on that. So Microsoft's already got it. Google's working on it. Amazon's working on it. Um, even if it's not like, even if the job title isn't linguist, there's always going to be, at least right now, because it's moving so fast, there's going to be a lot of jobs coming up for that are looking for somebody who has the type of understanding of language that we that we learned how to understand uh, getting our degrees in linguistics. So I couldn't tell you what exactly, what type of listings to look for necessarily, but like keywords like linguistics, because if they're looking for somebody with a background in language, that's always going to be the degree they're looking for. Zara, I sent you a while back in that email, I sent you a few different uh, keywords. But
Yes.
I forget all the ones that I came up with, but yeah, there's going to be more and more that are coming up, and they might all be in California, but there's going to be a lot of remote roles as well. Like I'm working remotely for Amazon right now, so you don't necessarily have to move to the West Coast to find something either. Uh, there's going to be something out there, but
That
yeah,
sounds
it's
like
going
good
to
news.
be in LLMs is where all the jobs are.
So, Sara, thank you so much for getting us to this point in the interview. This has been a conversation that's just gone along
A
so
pleasure.
quickly. I didn't even realize how much time had passed. We do have some questions in the chat. So what I was thinking is let me go ahead and get those out. And then if we still have time, we'll go back to the last two questions that we have for Darrin. Darrin, if I remember right, when I was doing some research for linguist job openings, researcher tends to be one of the things I found. You know, would say they're looking for a researcher, and then I read the description and it said language, basically. You know, researcher, text
Oh,
analysis.
but that's like not academia. That's
No,
like,
like in a company like Melissa Robinson, for example, her
oh yeah,
title is something like researcher for and I can't remember the new name of the company. They
she was
changed their
working for
name.
Verilog, right?
Yeah, and they've changed their name, I believe. Either that or that's the new name. Anyway. But yeah, that was her title, is something researcher.
Oh, okay.
So let's get to some of the questions in the chat. The first one is from Jeremy, and he would love to hear how you might use generative AI, such as ChatGPT, if it's applicable.
How I might use it?
Maybe in your job, or, I mean, students, we know how students might use it, but what about
Yeah.
what about you in your job?
Well, I don't, and I can't because we're working on our own, so it's like forbidden to use. My partner uses it all the time, so he's not a linguist, but I could tell you he does a lot of things, which involves reformatting data structures, helping find flaws in his code, so many different things. If I
So
were
in the
to,
job that he does, in his
yes,
job. Okay.
he wears many hats. But in my job, if I were to use it, I would, this is related to what my team is like kind of starting to do right now. I would say um I would, what it seems to be good at is um good at with help from humans, of course, is writing. And so I would probably give it documents that I'm working with and the style guide that I'm using, and have it point out inconsistencies or inaccuracies with the style, and help make these documents, which are guidelines, conventions documents, um, help them make them more effective. I think that's what I would use it for right now.
Okay, so like a tool, use it as a tool.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all. I believe that's all it can be. I don't think. I mean, maybe one day the machines will take over the world, but I don't think that's happening right
Hopefully
now.
not.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy, for your question. I hope that
Thanks,
answered it.
Jeremy.
And we're going to go on to Nikhil. Nikhil has a question. When working with models, are there specific structures or syntax groups that you use?
Well, I personally don't work with the language models. I would say I'm not on a first name basis with the language models. What I do is annotate data. And so what that means for what I do on a daily basis is I'm fed, the thing I do most is I'm fed a word, and then I do whatever research necessary to determine what the pronunciation of that word is. And so I apply all of that information as sort of additional metadata. And then when I submit that, that goes back to the model that other people who are smarter than me in other ways deal with, uh, to maintain the integrity of the voice model as far as how it pronounces words, so that it so um, we use when you're creating a voice model like Alexa, what you do is you have a probabilistic model, which if you've taken computational linguistics courses, you kind of have an understanding of that. Sort of like with predictive text, you're able to it's able to see a word and then kind of determine, okay, well, there's this letter plus this letter, so that probably makes this sound, and then so on. So that and so the model that I help train, it's basically just reiteration of the same type of information so that it can recognize those patterns. But yeah, I don't work with data models or anything like that, unfortunately. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's interesting how you focus on the little pieces of the data so that then those can be applied later. At
Yeah.
least that's what I
And
think you meant.
yeah, and in the early days before I even was there, they already took care of English. So we're working with a lot of like foreign words right
Oh,
now. So a lot of German for some reason. But
okay. Colin has a question too. Colin asks, were there any specific computational linguistics courses or resources you used to prepare you for an AI related career, or did you have all the tools you needed after taking the standard regular linguistics classes?
as far as the work that I do, I don't think computational linguistics came into play, although there were a couple times that my knowledge of Python, which has faded at this point, helped with when there was an issue with like the way text was presented on a page or something. I used Python to help it be more readable. But yeah, my specific job does not require any understanding really of computational linguistics. But I would say if that's something that interests you, you're going to find a pretty good, higher paying job than mine if you go that route. And I know that there's more offerings at UNT of computational linguistics nowadays. There wasn't any when I was in undergrad, and those courses were just starting out in grad school, and I took a couple. But I think there was a certification that started right whenever I was graduating.
The
So
computational
definitely
linguistics.
more opportunities, and that's for a good reason because that's a growing field. So
Okay. Sada, you took a few classes in computational linguistics, didn't you?
I took one, um, uh, Python for Text with Professor Lester. Um, I would strongly encourage everyone in our department to sign up for that class. I don't know if it's offered this semester or not, but if it is the next, I would highly recommend it. And Professor Lester is great, and he knows his stuff really well. So if you show up to class, I'm sure you would take a lot from that. And also, I found Darrin in that old email from a few months ago when you were helping me directly with job hunting.
mhm.
And I found those keywords that you mentioned, and so I put them in the chat for everybody to see if you
Oh,
want to
cool.
go over.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay, we have another question from the chat. It's from Nayana. Nayana asks, what are some of the best practices you and your team use to reduce data ambiguity? So kind of back to the ambiguity question, not how do you deal with it, but how can you reduce it?
What we try to do, because we can't control whether we receive ambiguous data, of course, what we try to do is collaborate as much as possible when something comes up and ensure by like auditing our guidelines that we make them we make sure that they're written in a way that the highest number of people can understand it in the most similar way, so that whether it's my team working on it or a non-linguist data annotator is working on it, they can look at this and understand this is how I do it. And of course, always, like I said, collaboration, we're able to confer with each other and our managers and our customers all the time if there's any sort of issue of ambiguity. So it doesn't come up a whole lot, But when it does, we just try to stay on top of it, and communication is very important so that everybody can sort of be on the same page for any sort of exception to the rule, I guess.
Perfect. And linguists are the, communication experts. So it's good to have a room full of linguists most of the time.
Sometimes it's too many cooks,
Yes.
but
Yes. Okay. Even I worked at ILI for 23 years, the Intensive English Language Institute, and you get enough prescriptive grammar teachers in a room, and just like Sara was talking about earlier, you can spend a lot of time arguing about how it should be, how the sentence should be, and what's
Mhm.
normal, what real normal people say. We don't say, "To whom are you speaking?"
Right.
Um, so, and then we have another question from Thomas Gomez in the chat. And by the way, Nayana and Tom are both COI ambassadors. We started an ambassador program. So, any of the students in the chat here can reach out to Tom or Nayana if you have any needs that you think an ambassador can help you with. So Tom asks, I'm also more of a hands-on learner who prefers the osmosis way of learning, like you said earlier. Can you share a specific project or challenge where hands-on experience was crucial in solving linguistic or technological issues?
I think the hands-on thing comes up a lot, where it did more often when I was working as a contractor. A specific scenario, I don't know, but like I said, I had to, when I was hopping from project to project, I guess I developed this like almost dependency on learning by doing, because sometimes you had to read the guidelines very quickly and just have them open in another window and like hop back and forth. And that happened a lot, is like doing while learning simultaneously. Yeah.
Okay, great. I hope that answered your question, Tom. Thanks for the question. And then I do see that Sara had put in the chat the key terms that you'd given her in the email, so that's helpful. And let's go ahead, Sara, since we've covered everybody's questions in the chat, let's go ahead and go back to the last two questions you had on the list, if you don't mind.
Okay. So Darrin, as a mentor for the College of Information, while you've mentored current students, even recently or in the past, being active as a mentor, can you tell us about what you learned from the other students that you're mentoring in this process?
Yeah, my response to this is going to be kind of puppy dogs and rainbows, but I had a very like cuddly experience as a mentor. I thought it was really inspiring. All the students just seemed so creative. I feel like they taught me more than I taught them, because they had such a diversity in their interests in the projects they were working on, and such a passion. I don't miss being in school, but I do miss that aspect of that excitement of working on a new project. And um, sometimes the deadlines are hot and you're doing all these things and it's all new and exciting and you're learning all of these things. So it kind of just reminded me how fun it was to be a student. But yeah, I just thought it was fascinating, all of the things like that they were doing. And I think that um, younger people in the next generation of students, they're just more passionate and creative. And I think they're on top of, they understand like what's next for the industry. And so it's fun to see what they're up to, what they're doing. So yeah, I really enjoyed being a mentor. And yeah, I'm sure I'll do it again.
I'm sure you will. Just joking. No, Darrin was a phenomenal mentor in the mentoring program, and thank you for that plug. I don't know if any of the students here who will be graduating and moving on to jobs, and Sara also at some point. We love you to come back and mentor current students, and the program is up and running for spring. We have 96 people involved, so We're always looking to add more mentors, and any of the students here who want to have a mentor, the program has already started for spring, but it'll be open again in the fall. So don't hesitate to sign up for fall.
Yeah, do it.
Reach out.
Thank you for that plug. And Sada, did you come to the end, or was there one more?
There is one more question, but I think we might have covered it already with the questions in the chat. So I kind of left it out. But you know, there is another question that I was thinking about, but we did not put it in the list of questions, Darrin. So you might not have the answer right away. Maybe you'll need a second to think about it. But you mentioned earlier that you've been a student of Haj Ross,
Mhm.
a great giant in our department. I never got to take a class with him, but I did have the honor of meeting him a few times. Can you please tell us one of the many lessons that I'm sure you've drawn from Haj's pearls of wisdom?
I think one of the things that I learned from Haj was, I think, first of all, not to take anything super seriously and to apply your personality to everything that you do. But I also will say his poetics class was so interesting, and how, you know, show everybody your t-shirt. I don't know if everybody's seen the t-shirt or the cover of his book, but all of those lines, they represent like geometric patterns in poetry that when we analyzed a poem, it was just so interesting. Like, he blew my mind with this concept that poets actually do this, and that you can take a written document and find subliminal patterns in it. Like, it was just so, that's just so interesting. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's a multi-dimensional figure for sure.
Yes.
I
And
heard a story. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sada.
no. If you said story, it's
Yeah,
the first one
I
you
heard
know.
I heard a story that in Hadge's class one time, it was a semantics class, that they spent the entire class period arguing about what a chair was, and that they never solved the problem of a definition of a chair.
Yeah, I think I heard about that legend as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had them for 3 classes and enjoyed all of them, but syntax was maybe I needed a little more. You know, today I'm glad I don't have to take a test in syntax. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Very fun. Learned so much. Had maybe too much fun.
Yeah, I never want to tree a sentence again, but it was a good experience nonetheless.
Yes. Yes. Well, it makes you feel really smart, I think, when you're treeing a sentence.
Yeah, like it's like language math.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's language math. What about you, Sada? Do you enjoy diagramming sentences?
I loved it. We did primarily X bar. Uh, I absolutely loved it. I used ChatGPT to see how well it would do. It got some of them right, some of them wrong.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
you know, I absolutely loved syntax. I couldn't wait to get there.
Fascinating. Well, we're coming up to the top of our hour. It's 7:59. This has been a fascinating discussion, and I really appreciate both of your participation in our first Industry Insights event of the spring 2024 season. I hope you'll both stick around, and I'll run into you in the mentorship program, or in another event, or on campus, or in Houston, Sada, or
Yes.
in Denton, Darrin. You never know, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
let's all thank our guests for being here, and I hope you all have a great night.